Welcome back from the break. We're getting into match number 2 of Playday number 1 of stage number 2. Lots of numbers flying around here, but we'll get it all sorted out. And joining us now, we have Tanner, Mr. Forceful.
Hey, how's it
Okay,
going?
good. So this is a big one. Okay, this is One Shot taking on Luminosity. Luminosity as an org making a return to the siege scene. Now, let's start with One Shot. This is the team that was ranked third last stage, going up against the team that was ranked number 1 last stage. We might have known them as ATK briefly as another team, but now we know them as Luminosity. But we'll talk about One Shot, Tanner. Talk about their roster because they had some important moves, some big moves.
Yeah, they really kind of pulled a gamble in this offseason. Like we said, they were the third best team in stage one, and that doesn't even do it enough justice. Like they were 1 point away from being tied with first place. Like it was such a tight race, and they made a bold roster move in which they dropped Subarctic and Slippery, and they picked up 2 of the former Exit players that we saw in stage 3, or Razor. We saw him recently with Mirage, with Prod and Razor. Now this move, it might actually be to their benefit. If they're looking to win the whole thing, if this is a gamble that they don't want to be the third best team, they want to be the best team, this might be the direction that they need to go. Specifically, I want to highlight, they still kept players like Swaylen at an absolutely monster stage from stage 1. I think he was either the 4th or the 5th highest rated player, and he's just been an absolute tour de force. And what I really like is them solidifying their back end with Prod. Bringing Prod in here is going to give a lot of confidence, a lot of stability. He's a good IGL. He's got really solid drone work. He's got good team fundamentals. And I think as a unit, like this is one of those rosters that I think could pull away from the stage. Like they could pull up to the top of the leaderboards.
I mean, any pro experience is good experience, and this team has plenty of it in spades. Now, moving over to the side of Luminosity, Connor, this team as well made one change, but one very interesting change, didn't they?
And then, unfortunately for Splash, he got the boot. He did land on his feet over towards the Nocturne's roster, but in comes Asian, one of the hottest commodities on the market. As soon as he turned 18, he probably had an entire inbox full of contract offers. And some of them were maybe it's interest from T1 orgs, from what I've heard behind the scenes. Got a couple tryouts, was so very close. And that's already just impressive enough for Asian coming in as a new player. Sure, he has the comp experience. He switched over from Xbox about a year ago, played in a bunch of T3 leagues that pretty much every single time he graced the league with his entry, that his team won. They just won everything. And we haven't really seen Asian lose anything. So for Luminosity coming in, great roster, already won last stage. They're looking to continue on this pressure. They're trying to really crank it all the way up, crank the heat, continue to be the top team in Challenger League. Now they also have a pretty fancy org backing them as well. So hopefully that pushes them over the edge.
Now, as we get into the critical points, Tanner, I just want to say, first of all, I loved your point about you've got to take big risks. You come in third, you have to shake things up and hope that elevates your team. Because if you don't, what can you expect but third again? So this is a team on the side of One Shot that really wants to improve what they built last stage.
Absolutely. They're definitely putting all their chips on the table. They're going all in with this roster move. Like I said, dropping Slip, dropping Subarctic, like those 2 players, they performed in stage 1. I expect to see both of those guys back in stage 3. Or correction, I know Slip's got picked up by West Garfield, but I expect to see Subarctic back in T2 because he's a very high-level T2 caliber player, deserves to be here. In terms of my critical points for this game, the biggest thing is coming in here and making sure you're abusing LG. So one thing LG did in the first stage is they had a 5 map pool. I think they went to Oregon. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, they went to Oregon 6 times. They won it 5 times, including in their last matchup, Playday versus One Shot, where they won in overtime. So biggest thing I'm looking here from One Shot is don't take them to Oregon. Control the map bans. One Shot demonstrated in stage 1 a very large map pool. They have a lot of maps they're comfortable in. They don't have very many permabans, whereas on the other side of LG, they did have a bunch of permabans. And then the second thing, this whole meta has been shifting. We saw this all stage 1, and we saw it at the Charlotte Major. The game is very less utility-based now. It's very tempo-based now. So in order to control the tempo, you need to have good information. You need to be good on the entry. And like we said, we just saw that Asian pickup. That's a massive pickup. You need to have that information so you're going to be able to control the tempo versus LG and, not get surprised by, their ability to make micro plays and to get picks.
Okay, so where they risked a lot, One Shot making a big change, Luminosity saying to themselves, look, we had a great stage, Connor. Let's not change too much. Let's tweak it a bit, try to make a bit of an improvement. But more or less, do you want to kind of stay the same? Like you did everything right. Why, rewrite the book?
Yeah, they didn't really need to change a whole lot, except they definitely are going to have role changes. Considering
Hmm.
Splash on the attacking side, he was playing that good old sledge most of the time when he wasn't lagging out of matches due to hotel Wi-Fi. He was on the sledge, and when you have Asian coming in, he's a Finka Yana a Rooney player, so he's always
Hmm.
off site on the defense, and he's first in the building getting those frags on the attacking side. So it's going to be up to most likely somebody else that was more aggressive and kind of in the entry department, most likely an Eddie slotting back to a little bit more of that passive flex role, picking up the
Hmm.
soft breach. And with Tanner, you made the great point of potentially Luminosity having the weaker map pool. They play a lot of Oregon. They found a lot of success on Oregon, but not really anywhere else. Hopefully, with this offseason, the kind of minor changes, only having to put in one new player, still having a great support staff in the form of Wayfair, allowing them to really bolster up their map pool.
Mm.
Well, I think the hope then, Tanner, is that we're not going to Oregon, but are we going to get something as crazy as theme park in the map ban phase?
No, I actually don't think we're going to get anything too crazy. Like I said, because this is all based on previous information, so it could be a big surprise. LG banning Oregon right off the rip, though.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. Like we said, they played that map 6 times. They like to play it. Now they're banning it. It's like looks like maybe they have a different map pool, which you can kind of expect. I was kind of leaning towards when I was doing my analysis here towards a Villa or a Chalet, just because it lines up better for both of these teams. They're both maps that both teams like to go to play. Theme Park and Border being taken out, like that's no surprise. Theme Park's a permaban from the side of actually. Uh, Theme Park's a ban for the side of LG, and Border's a perma ban for the side of One Shot. So like I said, these map pools and how they're actually developed here throughout today, it's going to be completely different. You see the Villa band. It looks like we only have, I believe it's Chalet and I don't know what Cafe left.
Looks like it.
I'd be really interested to see a Cafe. No, LG's
Mm.
been permabanning Cafe since stage one. So going to Chalet, kind of how I predicted. Chalet is a great map. It's a very attacker sided map. It's very pick heavy. You don't need a lot of map control to kind of execute on site. I think this favors heavily on the side of LG in terms of their ability to basically get into site and get active. One of the biggest weaknesses we saw from them throughout the stage one was like they weren't taking map control very quickly. They were just getting picks. This is a perfect pick map for them. There's a lot of cheese plays they can make. I think this is looking very favorable in terms of the map bans for the side of LG.
I
Well,
have
I
a
was
counterpoint. I have a
Go for it.
okay.
counterpoint, Mr. Tanner,
Go
because
for it.
if you remember the relegations match with, we can almost look towards the XSET relegated team because this is not just
Mhm.
one shot. You can call them XX set because it's now up to 3/5 of them. Like there's a lot of old XSET players, and all of the players that are on the roster, NVK as well as Razor and Prod, they played incredibly well. I guess maybe not NVK to drop a donut on that map, but Prod and Razor played very well on that in that relegation BO5 on Chalet, where they played against Parabellum, who were by far the best Chalet team that we had seen and looked incredibly good, brought that match to overtime. So
Mhm.
maybe if any of that has been imparted upon them, that should help because Swalen and Kilo also had a very strong Chalet with old iterations of One Shot.
Absolutely.
Well, is it the possibility, Tanner? We'll throw up the predictions here, but is it the possibility that with those early bans that you saw, where they almost seemed opposite of what we'd expect from each team, that these teams took the time in the offseason to maybe develop their pools and change up, their strengths and their weaknesses?
100%, 100%. Like both of these rosters are top tier CL teams for a reason.
Mhm.
There's a lot of depth. You go into like just in the prep work, you can when you go and examine these teams, you can see the massive map pool, the big strat pool they have for each site. Like they're comfortable with multiple bans.
Mhm.
They can counter ban. There's a lot of counter strat going on. So like last time we saw these two teams play, like it was an 8-6. It was a very close game. So both of these teams show a lot of depth. Both of these teams would have looked to improve in the offseason. They both have, big coaching staff. I didn't even mention on the side of One Shot that Necrox was
Mm-hmm.
picked up as the coach, right? And you've got
Huge.
that's a
Mhm.
massive pick, right? Like the guy has a lot of pro league experience. He's been in the scene for a long time. He might be far removed from the game as a player, but that game knowledge and that game sense still kind of can show through from the side of from One Shot. So, I definitely expected both these teams to expand that map pool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the Chalet game. from both.
I'm personally super excited for it. This might be the matchup of the day, although Dexter did put on that show last matchup. So, the bar is set high today. But like we said, that third place team taking on the first place team from stage 1. It's one shot going up against Luminosity, and we get to see them on Chalet.
Definitely break with Brim a little bit. I don't think this might be the match of the day. I would say this is 100%. Even with Dexter's performance last game, I think this is the match of the day. Now, of course, I could be foolish, John, and maybe this game will be a blowout one way or the other. I mean, hey, maybe if LG blow one shot out of the park and on Asian's debut, could be good. But personally, I think this has got to be game of the day.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's top 3 teams for CL last stage, and you've got pretty much a brand new roster of people who have proved themselves before in the past, and then you have the former top team of CL in stage 1 with a completely new, I guess org now, backing them up, giving them even more help and
LG.
support. I mean, surely, Luminosity, they must think that this team is going places if they are completely willing to pick them up for stage 2.
I mean, after a first place finish in stage 1, and you make roster moves that you get a massive young gunner like Asian, who him alongside Gunner were like the 2 big pickups everyone was looking at once they turned 18 coming out of T3. You get that on top of what looks like a very promising roster with players like Berta making a comeback in stage 1 and putting up some really impressive numbers. I think it's definitely a good pickup for LG. But even then, looking at one shot, as was mentioned before, you have 3/5 of that now relegated XSET roster, but it's still some very good players. Prod is a very well-respected support, and Razor is a very talented fragger when he's put on a project that he believes in, and I think he can thrive on and rely on his teammates for. So going here, we have a young gunner coming up from T3, a very talented gunner coming down from T1, both clashing in Challenger League. That's part of the reason why I think this has got to be the game of the day.
And we mentioned the incredible gun skill for both Luminosity and One Shot, and a map like Chalet, it definitely fits that bill quite well. It's a very attacker-favored map, and also you can sometimes see that supporting role kind of shining through again. I have seen Sens actually played on this map before in the past and properly utilized, so I'm really hoping we get to see a little bit of a supportive styles of play here as well, maybe going in for that post-plant setup. I mean, especially with Osa being on the board as well, if she isn't banned, that could be a huge op to bring out as well, especially if you want to just hit the site and go into post-plant immediately.
I mean, personally, I would like to watch some Sense. You throw one of those little rolling gadgets out, the light screen comes up. It's very cinematic when that can happen, so I would certainly appreciate seeing some. But Chalet as a whole, again, another reason why I'm excited for this matchup. Of course, saw the map bans coming in, was curious where this was going to go. Chalet is a map that, as the desk talked about, not only favors both of these teams, well, LG in terms of play style and One Shot, and these players in terms of their history and their pedigree, but it is a map that just tends to be a little more explosive. Once those initial power positions are knocked down, once library starts getting cleared out, once you start pushing down solar stairs into maybe downstairs into kitchen and trophy, the map tends to get very hectic, but tends to get very heated and very exciting, and tends to revolve around gunfights once those initial positions are taken down, which should be a good showcase of skill for both of these teams, but also some good showcase for maybe the supporting core on One Shot. Chalet is also a map that revolves around, getting players into positions and then using utility and working off each other in these various positions, and that's something a good IGL and a good support backbone can contribute, and I definitely think One Shot has this with the roster moves they made.
Well, still waiting on one player. I guess we can go over one little side note. We have Julian actually back to his old name of Kickstarter, so in case you aren't familiar who Julian actually was, that will be there instead. Yeah, so might be a little weird. Probably still going to call him by Julian. I think it's a more fitting name, hence why that's probably the name he was given on birth. Yes. So we'll just go by that with simplicity just to keep everything as usual. Finally, we've got all 10 players up in the lobby. We're just waiting on ours. So we'll be hopping into the map of Chalet momentarily, and then we get to go discuss the operator bans, which we saw a little bit of variety on the last best of one matchup. Do you think we'll see that here today as well, Carter, in this match?
I mean, I certainly hope we will. As we mentioned before, Mira is, I was going to say blacklisted, but I guess she technically would be blacklisted. Yeah. Well, either way, she's not allowed in comp play due to a bug. So
in quarantine.
Yeah, she's in quarantine. That kind of opens up a ban slot. And I mean, we do see Mira bans on Chalet sometimes. Maybe not like highest priority. Normally might see Valk taken off the board as a defensive ban. For the attack, I think we'll probably see a lot of the usual suspects, maybe a Thatcher and a Hard Breach, maybe a Thatcher and somebody else, but I think never mind. It's actually 0, the first ban, so I did not expect that one.
Well, okay. I don't know if that was intended or not, but
Prod is unhappy.
Probably was, yeah, no. Prod was not having any of that, probably a little upset. And the Thermite ban to follow up. Wow.
Right.
Okay, this is a very unique ban phase. I mean, with a lot of walls being pretty, reachable for a Thermite just to open up a gigantic wall into sight, it does make sense. So that's definitely not a bad ban. You can see Zero sometimes for better burn with those Argus cameras. You still have some sort of flank watch and secondary heart breach. I mean, he's got a little bit of everything. The jack of all trades, if you want to call it that. And then the more default ban of Valkyrie. I mean, honestly, all these bans, they make total sense.
Who is RZZRR?
I believe that's Razor.
Oh, wait, I'm stupid.
It's okay.
I'm stupid.
I was going to highlight that too, but I was like, you know what? I can just stick to Julian for now. It's fine. I'm sure everyone else can figure it out. No, apparently not.
I literally was like, RZ, what? And there was no .1s in the name, so I was like, what? But never mind. We're all good now. I was losing my mind for a bit. We do see a zombie ban come through. I was going to say, I do think we might see here on this map, just as I said before, this map for the attack revolves a lot around getting into positions like sitting outside library window or sitting on office balcony outside that doorway or that window. That a zombie can be very useful in just shutting down those angles. Put her inside a pillar or top fireplace. She can toss Kiva barriers at all of these positions that not only could cover areas, but could give her positions and effectively deployable shields to play behind. So I think that's a ban that definitely makes sense for Luminosity to deny for one shot as we go further into the match. And right now, John, what do you know? We actually have Prod switching to Sens in round number 1. How he'll use it on Kitchen and Trophy to be determined, but Asian will fortunately call a rehost, so see if that goes through, but we do have a Sens.
Fingers crossed.
At the very least. Confirmed.
Yes, so we will probably... There's a really cool trick you can do for Dining Room, which I'll probably highlight a little more if we actually go into the rehost. Nope, just kidding. 5v4 off through it for one shot. There is a drone hole located near the dining room bomb site where you can throw a projector through, and that completely cuts dining room in half to where you can go in through the back wall and go for a default post plant while having that entire line of sight blocked off. We could potentially see that in play, although it could be rather risky with not having a glass on the board. So for now, we'll have one shot, do the basics. They want to clear out this whole top floor, that way they don't worry about any kind of verticality that Luminosity might try to bring out here to stop that plant from going down. And already having that 5-on-4, they could be a little more lenient on how they want to go by this, but it seems like with NVK over on the side balcony and the rest of one shot just pushing their way through, it seems like they'll still be as aggressive as they were as if it were a 5-on-5.
You just stick to your game plan, not worry. Ooh, both magnets taken down, or 2 magnets taken down for free right there. So MBK, he will take those and move onward. You don't have to worry as much about burning some of those magnets when you throw in some flashes and throw in some nades. So you can get a little bit quicker with that explosive utility now that those are off the board. Asian playing at the bathroom door right now, looking out, providing some support to Ferda if need be, though he is rotated all the way back into master bedroom. So shots exchanged between LG and one shot right now, but one shot might just be going for that half clear and not really focusing on pushing all the way through this top floor.
I mean, so long as they have a sightline opened up and someone just watching either on those fireplace stairs or someone just over near the top of mezzanine, for example, they can stop anybody from asserting any proper vertical. You just have to worry about the long lines of sight you can gather over near trophy stairs, but with someone actually applying a bit of pressure either near the solar rappel or just over near trophy room, it seems like Luminosity will have to fall back just a bit further during this final minute.
You might have a nice angle right now. If Razor pushes a little bit too aggressively, he will do that and take a shot, but will not be the end of him. He'll lose a bit of HP and minimize all of that damage, overwrite it with an adrenal surge, not back at full HP, but just a little bit under it to go forward. A lot of nades used by the attack at this point, but they've acquired that vertical control. They might not have gotten any kills, excluding Eddie's PC crashing. Still have that advantage, but with the control they have, the vertical, and these still plays that could happen, could go huge, but Kix gets very aggressive with that super short. He takes down Razor with 2 shots, but NVK's right behind him. NVK's going forward. The castle knows. He is aware of this presence on trophy stairs. There's somebody around the corner as well. The LMG starts firing, but NVK's not aware. Averta just to his left, and he gets taken down. Eddie does return, but he might not even have needed to be here. LG and the man advantage right now, dominantly so, despite Kilo entering the post plant. He's put the diffuser on the floor. He's worried right now. There might be somebody in fireplace. He takes him down, but Asian puts him to 1 HP. And even though they all line up, the stars align for Luminosity. They take round number 1 despite the 4v5.
And still, with Luminosity having to give up a lot of that map control, they were still pretty darn strong, holding down a majority of that first floor, and they were still able to isolate a lot of 1-for-1s. In particular, Julian finding a kill with the super shorty and having nobody pressure him out from that trophy window, allowing him to still hold a pretty decent amount of the map to just give the rest of his team time to go for those hero plays and still get those 1-for-1s down. I felt like One Shot they stalled way too much. It was not that difficult of a process to clear out that entire top floor, especially since you have a 5 versus 4 granted to you because a rehost was not activated. So it just seemed like a pretty big red flag to start things off for One Shot here on their attacks.
Now the first defensive win under their belt. Eddie back in the lobby. They'll go down to basement, definitely feeling probably the most confident they probably could feel after a first round of a CL game, beyond maybe flawlessing as well. Winning that 4v5, even when it got to the post plant, I mean, that's just excellent for Luminosity as a little bit of a taste for what could come further in Chalet. Again, as I said, it will be basement. We'll see a very heavy roam by Luminosity. Kicks moving to the Oryx. Asian on the Vigil. A lot of offside play for LG right now.
I mean, it makes sense. They're a very aggressive team, and when you go and pick a bottom floor site, such as Wine, Snowmobile, you have the luxury to basically extend all the way to the top floor, and you can waste a lot of valuable resources, not only players, but the drones they can have in their back pockets, and also the time that they have as well. If you can waste a minute and a half, even more than that, on both the top and middle floor, that can slow down the verticality you tend to see when your Sledge or Buck wants to go in through the middle of a main room near fireplace, for example, also near the back of dining room and those positions to go and weaken some of the places over near Wine. So if Luminosity can just have a pretty strong roam game overall, that can definitely lead a strong tempo throughout the rest of this round.
One Shot not pushing forward just yet. First minute now gone. Taking some control over by Library. Razor and NVK both chilling over on that side of the map, but beyond that, they are keeping their focus. Relegated to this area right now. Not looking to get too far into the weeds, though they will likely have to turn some attention to there at some point. Maybe take down any presence on top of that wine hatch. Good piece of vertical to have if they opt to go for it. But right now, again, as I said, just focusing on that area, not trying to get things too complicated.
Seems like for One Shot, they will eventually begin to get this back wall opened on up. We had a small glimpse of Ellie Noir, I suppose, but now we're back to full color here as Kilo still does his work with the Maverick Blowtorch, eventually waiting for some soft structure maybe to rotate around or just having a couple of kill holes opened up towards the back of Snowmobile. Still One Shot are in pretty decent shape, but I believe there's still a main roamer up on the top floor that has not been snuffed out just yet.
Still a little bit of presence on that top floor. Silent has rotated back. Asian has not moved down below. I thought he joined Eddie down inside a kitchen, but he is the one still upstairs. A dangerous player to leave alive on that top floor, might I add. One that One Shot have to be worried about, and they can't let anything slip by them. Swalen is watching the cutoff in case anybody starts moving over towards the library, so they may not have a direct bead on Asian's position, but they are aware of the possibility that somebody might go for a flank. Razor, one of the first members of One Shot, focused on towards the site, waiting to see if anybody pushes up through blue hallway. Somebody does, but Erda not only escapes death, almost takes down Razor, but a lot of his shots go wide, and Razor will push forward as a result. He almost loses his life as well. The One Shot still retained the lead. Verda peeks and just stands there awaiting Razor's bullets. That leaves Eddie all alone. Doesn't have a lot of room to breathe at the moment. The entire other site is out of his control. He can spot the player moving off the planter. That's diffuser gone, but Swalen on the hatch will take him down. And One Shot redeemed themselves after not an embarrassing first round, but definitely one that was pretty unbelievable.
And the fact that we still had two different players lose the gunfight against Razor, it allowed One Shot to have total control of the site, essentially, force that 1v3, and because they took their time clearing out the entire floor and they were able to eliminate Asian before he turned into too much of a thorn in their sides, they had coverage of vertical, they had someone out on breach once the plant went down, and of course, they still had Razor in the middle of the site able to do God's work with that LMG.
Go to Master Bedroom and Office next. Talked about some odd site choices on Theme Park for LSR, not opting to go to Throne very much. Kind of the same for Luminosity right now. We see them go to Master Bedroom Office, which, at least in North America, has definitely not only been one of the least preferred sites, but also statistically the worst. There's bar games, one of the, if not the best and the most preferred, but LG have not opted to go for that just yet. Obviously, so far, it's too early to, say this is a bad decision just yet. They had a very solid round number 1 in the man deficit, and it looked like round number 2 could still go their way. So I have confidence they can make something work, but it is interesting to see them elect not to go to what typically is the most preferred side on Chalet.
No bar in gaming just yet. Maybe saving the best for last, I suppose. Whatever's in the mind. The thought process of Luminosity, or maybe just trying to throw one shot off a little bit. Whatever floats their boat, I suppose. They almost ended up starting out 2-0 in their defense, which is a pretty good start for a map like Chalet. Asian are receiving a lot of pressure, will begin to fall back just a smidge over near the top of blue stairs instead of holding directly over near library, but still hasn't given up that much map control. He'll probably need to be directly forced out by both a drone and probably some actual utility, maybe some lifeline concussive blast, or just NVK outright holding this position with that LMG.
Nobody peeking him just yet. Asian maybe getting a little aggressive, but just pre-firing, not really trying to fully commit to the gunfight. Instead, just holding back, maybe waiting for someone to peek. First DE, 1D goes out. Will force him to stand still. Takes down a drone. Cresting that library stairs. Ooh, Razor fires a shot. That scares Asians off, but he's cooking a nade. It bounces down. The Aruni just escapes it in time. We just got to worry about now 3 one-shot players, 1 below, 2 up above. Almost finds 1, but Razor is whittling him down every time Asian peeks. Second nade goes out. He dodges it. He is wasting so much time, attention, and utility, but it's looking like Asian is a dead man walking right now. He's got to go 1 for 1. Silent takes down Razor, watching Asian like a guardian angel. This might just be working out for Luminosity.
Everyone is just solely focusing on Asian. He has already done so much, and he escapes through bottom of blue as well. That has to be such a facepalm for One Shot, as they have wasted so many of their resources and lost Razor, which was such a powerful player to keep in their back pocket for the final minute 20 last round.
Starting to open up that office wall as well with the Maverick. Of course, no thermite to create the big hole that we would normally see utilized on sites like Kitchen and Dining and like Master Bedroom Office. You're forced to create some kind of Frankenstein's monster with that Maverick breaching torch in order to open up. Silent did a very good job at getting aggressive and taking down Razor, baiting Asian to get that kill to start things off. And he's looking to continue contesting some parts of the map that the attackers think are safe. Looking out that double door, maybe even trying to tangle with Prod outside the bathroom window as well if he wants to go for that. One Shot right now just waiting, still biding their time for the moment. I believe they've opened up that heaven wall right now so they can start pushing on through, but Kix takes down 1. Prod finally gets something on the board for One Shot, but they might just have to send this. NVK's worked his way into Piano, not finding anybody just yet. They could vault into office and start trying to get the bomb down, but there are 3 players in bedroom who could look over that way and maybe even deny the plant. No toxic canisters, as Silent has used all of his. Unfortunately, it seems like the wall might be bugged. They might not be able to go through. They'll just have to try to stake this on kills. Verdict cuts down 1. NVK gets a Claymore, but LG seem to be taking this round in full force. And maybe can take down Kilo in the gap between that plant. He'll instead save his KD.
And even with the wall bug or not, it was still just a pretty rough start for One Shot, and that probably was the bigger reason why they had a lot of struggles on round number 3 trying to attack against Master. The actual coordination of pushing against Asian when he was trapped on blue stairs was essentially non-existent. We had nobody watching in through the piano double door swing. Everyone was just solely focusing on Asian, yet when there were nades being thrown, when there were stuns being tossed out, when lion scans were ringing through the map as well, nobody was actually pushing out Asian. Instead, they just let him sit there, back off a little bit, not get caught by the nade completely, and just burn through the pockets of One Shot, which granted Luminosity so much leeway, and also the fact that we had Silent go swing wide and get that 5v4. I mean, it made things so complex for One Shot once they actually started to try to attack the bomb site and the rooms near it.
Luminosity also, I mean, you talked about, the proficiency on Master Bedroom and Office, able to make things complicated for One Shot. Now they've won 2 bomb sites, but they've played all 3. They will go for number 4. So we will see every single bomb site played on Chalet. And Luminosity, with their final site brought out, again, as I said earlier, it is arguably the most preferred and the best statistically on Chalet. We'll see a couple changes for One Shot, though, John. We see Kilo moving to the Ying, an ace brought out as well, and a Twitch on the board, but definitely looking at that Ying and that ace to see what those changes in hard breaching and that addition of those Candelas will bring and change for One Shot.
I'm hoping for Kilo's sake that he uses some of those Candelas a little more proactively to actually try to clear out this roam game a little faster. I mean, a great example of last round is when we had 3 people trying to deal with 1 person on blue stairs, and they just simply couldn't do it, even when they had nades, regular flashes, and line scans. Maybe with that reassurance of the Candela fully blinding someone, even if they're in, you know, a 100-foot radius, they should probably be able to kill that person and get an opening duel on the board as an actual win for once, as so far it's been nothing but net for Luminosity.
Though we did see him actually full blind in the previous game, still somehow get a kill on a player pushing in through a doorway. So most of the time, those things should happen, but sometimes they do not. Some things that usually should happen as well. Full intel on a player in garage. This should be a kill. Swaylen watching from one way, NVK watching from another. In this case, the luck does not go Silent's way. He walks right into NVK's crosshairs, and that's an excellent clear for one shot, though it really was just kind of a sitting duck waiting for attackers to come clear him.
Well, at least things are starting out quite well for one shot with that information being fed that NVK is down below. Maybe Asian will try to work some sort of refrag. Seems to only spot a drone as of right now. Minute 30 to go, and it seems like NVK is fully rotated up near the main double door to just give more assistance. Still having a Twitch drone in their back pocket, they could break a little bit of extra utility before going in for this initial pushes. They still have plenty of time to kill in this round, Carter.
Quite a bit of time to still burn through. Asian will swing one. Ooh, takes the head off of Razor. Can't even react in time. That's the skill you need from a young gunner pickup. Oh, still plenty of time for even more flashy plays. You can face check that and get a kill, but how can you have some further impact in the late round beyond making it a 4v4?
Seems like they just have to try to get creative a bit. I'm really shocked that we didn't have one shot actually try to clear up the top floor at all. They've been really focusing on this basement side, and Asian is able to take down Swale before getting Marty domed out by the frag grenade. NVK shuts down Julian as well, as he's just in the midst of sight going in for this plant.
I have to hope that somebody's covering him, but it doesn't really matter because nobody from LG is on the site. They're still watching and assuming that they're going to push into games, but NVK creeps on into bar, and LG is left with their heads scratching, just wondering what the hell is going to happen. Eddie drops, and he falls to NVK. Prod gets the final one. One-shot read. That bar is a freebie. They take it, and LG are just caught in the crossfire.
Really shocked that we didn't have the mute player up above trying to do any sort of vertical play, as you already had the Jaeger watching in for a big window hopping through sight, but nobody was checking for any kind of presence that would just be through bar doorway, especially when you want to go for more of a basement orientated top or bottom to top clear, you are going to be expecting people to walk in through blue stairs, maybe go around through the snowmobile stairway as well. It just seemed a little bit off that LG didn't try to think of that at all, or didn't have any information to allow that adjustment to be made mid-round. So that grants one shot a second round, and that equalizes us going into round number 5 as well.
Going back down to basement, which we saw LG lose as the first round lost on Chalet so far. We saw quite a few players on the roam. 3 to start out: Silent, Asian, and Eddie, who I believe was kind of the one closest to home, who's sitting in kitchen on that hatch, playing off of it, but not as far out as Silent or Asian were. But it wasn't really able to work out all that much as for what they wanted. One shot was still able to do a lot of work on the site before Asian could, fully start flanking back and making something happen. But it's still something that one shot have to worry about, something that they'll have to deal with. And hey, if Silent's able to get a pick here, which I don't think he will, could have been huge, but no, we'll just have to resort to traditional means, try to get the opening pick.
Trying to move in somewhere closer, I suppose. Maybe buddy-buddy system here with Asian, as although he's been pretty good by himself on this roam game, having the safety net of potentially having a refragger to someone close by to feed off that information when he just died could be pretty impactful, especially when one shot have been grouping up a lot, have been trying to be very methodical about these kind of clears. And already off the bat, we've got one shot up on library balcony. They are fully aware that we're going to have Luminosity on this top floor roam, so they want to clear it out as quickly as possible to not have to worry about a flank later on.
Silent hops out, but he walks right into one shot's crosshairs. NVK watching that very jump out. That's a position he's played all the way since X-Set as well. So this is a classic position for NVK. Classic position in general to watch that bathroom jump out. And Silent, unfortunately, falls for the oldest trick in the book. Not finished off, only down, so Asian can pick him back up. And that's still one bullet away from death that Silent, Asian's duo on the roam will now have to worry about.
Seems like we finally have One Shot beginning to drone out the first floor as well, so they can start getting that vertical down and then focus solely on the actual bomb site itself. Luminosity, though, because Silent was able to get revived, they're still in that 5 versus 5, and they still haven't been properly cleared out of this top floor. And really one of the big successful factors of this round for One Shot last time the site was in play was Razor going in for the heroics over near blue stairs. So if he gets denied this time by Ferda, this could be a great redemption arc for Luminosity, but Ferda gets immediately down and most likely will get finished off by that grenade.
Ooh, and another defensive player almost lost their life. Vertig was already down. The other player, I believe that was Eddie, not finished off, but 2 players now on low HP. Despite that, Silent took down NVK, and Swalen goes down as well. So this is a much better round for LG. It might have been a repeat with Ferda losing control of blue, but they are fighting back in a way that was simply 100% the opposite in round number 2. Prod starts bringing things back from the brink of destruction. He takes down Asian, but he was on the roam. What has been the big problem for One Shot so far has been these site players. Eddie and Silent now rotating back, able to get active. Kick still has 1 smoke canister left to waste some time, but Eddie's actually upstairs. He's rotated all the way back up, and I don't know if One Shot have accounted for this. Prod is making his way all the way down in the blue. Player he was looking at through the drone hole, now gone. Kilo might be able to find another one. Silent just below his crosshair on 1 HP, but he dodges it for the time being. Finally finished off, but do they know about Eddie? They're looking into the site. The castle has waited. He has played the patient game. He'll drop. Prod will hear. No, he's over by main. He swings, but Prod's looking the wrong way! But Eddie can't land the shot on the Maverick. Kilo saves it, stops what could have been play of the game. Gets One Shot, their second win on basement.
And the roam game has been pretty effective by Luminosity. Their biggest issue, though, is knowing when to come back to the actual bomb site. Their retake game has been very lackluster so far in this first half. If we saw Eddie potentially pick up the pace, maybe work his way down main stairs earlier, that could have been a potential kill on one of the 2 ops left on the side of One Shot, and that could have strongly put themselves in the lead, because the only defenders that were left in the bomb site were One Shot away from death and had to get aggressive to stop that plant because there were no more toxic smoke left in their back pocket, which forced a lot of aggressive swings and a lot of gambles made by Luminosity that they just weren't in a good position to actually go for those kills.
Now we'll see Kitchen and Dining again. I will say, I'm glad that hopefully we will see LG with their full 5-man roster, but they still run the round even with 4. So I say that, but it should just be more of a good thing, what it already was, if you're an LG fan. I also hope that because of that, maybe we'll see a little bit more from Prod on Sens. You know, we saw him switch to it. We were very excited. And then we didn't really see anything happen with it. It went for a solar take, and LG just kind of stopped everyone from entering the site. So hopefully here, even if One Shot end up losing, we'll see that Sens gadget be a little bit more impactful, or at least happen at all.
See the projectors be a little more effective than just getting the plant down. Maybe actually help to clear out some of the roam game as well, which we have seen as a constant for Luminosity so far. Only time will tell. Kilo up with a blowtorch will unconventionally get the castle barricade off of the double window leading in through Master, so that can help out break off this defense left top floor a little earlier than expected, because the biggest thing that's almost always been a problem for One Shot is just their time management. They've always been a very structured and slow team, so once again, if we have Luminosity kind of walk all over them, get that first entry, and just waste a lot of One Shot's time, they will be sitting very pretty and can probably equalize the scoreline 3-3.
They went for that half clear last time, so if they just get that same control, might not worry too much. Though, once everyone rotated, they did fill that gap pretty quickly, so maybe not actively clearing, but letting Luminosity vacate the area themselves and then moving forward. We're again seeing the impact of this thermite ban. What we would normally see here is exothermic on the office wall, exothermic on the dining wall, and that's it. That's your hard breaching done and dusted. But now here, though I will say One Shot could make a little bit better use of the Ace. He is unbanned and can make a little bit bigger holes and a little bit more efficiently than a Maverick or a Hibana. One Shot have decided to go for this hard breach combo, but it is taking a lot more time because of that thermite ban. Hicks is also looking to get aggressive with the player on Heaven, but loses, well, not his life, but his ability to fight back, because he's down behind the bedroom wall. There's one more thing that Luminosity are not being happy with this round.
And Julian will eventually be picked back up. Fingers crossed for the sake of Luminosity. The wall has finally been destroyed as well, so One Shot have an access way into site, but besides that, they still haven't worked the pick, and they're still spending a lot of time just setting themselves up, and there's still a boatload of utility, not only with those toxic smokes, but also the yokais to try to stop this plant from potentially going down.
Yeah, there's no C4, which is sometimes worrying, but now there's no toxic canisters either. A nade takes away Silent's life. We finally see Prod in position to make use of these smoke screens from Sens. Sitting at the drone hole, he'll throw one in to cut off the entirety of the site once he does, though Asian fights back, takes down Kilo. The diffuser now dropped inside a site as well. Right as it goes out, the execute crumbles into dust. Prod also down, trying to enter into the building. This play we were hyping up is now completely nullified. Razor, the last guy left, only on 1 HP, but he sees two people starting to walk down Solar Stairs. Just one bullet will do him in, but he's got the angle and the info on now every single player. One direct, the other incidental, but it doesn't matter in the end as Asian gets the final 2 kills. Sadly, the Sens gadget didn't even have the opportunity to be effective.
And if we just had the case player just wait an extra few seconds for the projector to actually prop up, that could have potentially been a post-plant situation in a 3v3 with Toxic Babes. Not something to worry about as well because we had the smoke, the first to die in round number 6. But I could assume Prod made the call. I throw out my gadget, hop into site to go and plant, and just walked into the fray and died immediately because, again, the projector, it just didn't fully proc up yet, and it wasn't any cover to actually deny that line of sight, granting Luminosity just a glimmer of hope and now an equal scoreline going into the second half.
They'll start out on basement as well, so neither party in this game really wanting to try out that bar gaming site. A whole lot, at least, is their first site, of course, but unsurprisingly, since One Shot are trying out basement, they'll go with that roam. They'll put Razor on the Oryx. Not as much, not the Vigil or the Mozzie like we saw before, but definitely some ops that will help the roam. Those Banshees that could be placed off site, but will probably be placed closer to the site, but specifically those goo mines, just to allow for just some intel that you don't even really have to think about. You just have to hear and then play off of.
Intel is always king, especially when you have a very roam style of heavy roam composition. Again, it just allows for late round plays to be a little more successful. In terms of a roam clear, that seems to be non-existent as of right now. Luminosity want to immediately open up this back snowmobile wall to get an immediate access way into our site, and with, I believe, an impact working and a second impact grenade flying out via Prod, it wastes all of Furtizek's Kairos charges, and now the Selmas will have to be utilized to maybe get an actual walkable hole in through this back wall.
Swalen pops out another. He still has another impact grenade in his pocket. If they really wanted to, they could get NVK down below as well for some more, but he's sitting up top right now using his impact grenades to make rotates up above. One Shot have certainly done enough to make Luminosity. Luminosity's hard-breaching hopes a lot more difficult. One Selma will be detonated on that wine wall, though. That is a very important one. The impact trick here, I think, fails entirely. So this wall will be opened up, and that's an important angle for the site players. But now you gotta worry. Open up that trench wall, open up that garage wall as well. Might not matter if Asian is just able to kill everyone, though.
Still having one more Selma left in the back pocket of Julian, he can actually get the side wine wall open up to go for that default plant. Having the man advantage and having Luminosity not worrying about the flank as of right now can allow them just to solely focus in on an actual slight execute, but Razor changes things up, dashes into Furta, shuts down the Havana, and now can begin to go across the map to try to shoot Luminosity in the back.
Hilo is certainly on site playing with fire right now, but Kix just made his way on in. Both him and Silent getting the diffuser down, and nobody from One Shot is able to fight back, or at least with gunplay, but the C4 lands. Silent escapes it, though. He just pre-fires and doesn't kill him. Downs Kilo, but the shotgun is a little faster. But the new gunner, the new pickup Asian, this is a prime time to show what you can offer to any team whatsoever. One's down already. He's got 2 kills so far. It's a 1v1. He's looking at the ace right now in the first round on the attack. He's picked up the diffuser. Where's NVK? Alt walking down blue at the moment. Just waiting. You can hear the diffuser clicking away. Asian falls off. Peeks one angle. Checks it. Gotta know the right side now, but NVK, he might have the drop, and yes, he does! Stops the big play in round number 7 and saves One Shot's defense.
Such a close call for the young gunner as well, but because Kilo was alive, he was able to have the audio call to give NVK perfect information as to what Asian was doing, where he was looking at, and how to play in that technical 1-versus-1 situation. That was such a brilliant attempt by Asian, but an even better play by both Kilo and NVK to guarantee Luminosity do not take the lead.
I was starting to shake right there for One Shot, though. I mean, that was the play when once he gets that kill with the guy on the hatch, you're like, oh no, it's about to start happening. Thankfully, as you said, NVK and Kilo able to tag team it with one still on the floor. Able to bring that one back. Move to kitchen and dining now, where, again, we'll probably see something similar. We'll see One Shot station themselves in Master Bedroom office, then pull back towards Solar once Luminosity starts pressuring them. I want to see if Luminosity are able to circumvent some of those problems hard breaching that they had before. We won't see as direct of an impact trick, probably, just because you can't really play as aggressively on either of these walls as you can, say, on the garage wall, but it's still a situation where if they're not able to get these Soma charges down to full effect, they'll have a much more difficult time even pushing these players from One Shot back.
Wondering if Luminosity want to go for another direct attack, because with the Osa on the board, it is going to alleviate a lot of the pressure you would normally see when you go in for a post-plant kind of situation. You still have Eddie on the buck, so soft destruction and verticality is most definitely there, but for One Shot, for example, they didn't fully clear out the top floor all that often, except for on round number 1, I believe it'd be, and because they're a very slow team, it just didn't really work out as well as they probably had expected. So maybe for Luminosity, they want to just continue with that direct kind of play style and just try not to waste as much time as they can, so they can just hit the site with a lot of time to spare.
Certainly not wasting time moving upstairs. 45 seconds in, Eddie cleared out or maybe not the entirety of the bottom floor, but definitely garage. They're already starting to push into piano as the Aruna Gate goes up. Asian immediately burns it with that Yana clone, and within the gap before that Aruna Gate can be reactivated, they can start throwing flashes in, throwing nades in, and hoping to take down not only some utility from the defense, but also maybe a player or two if their aim is true.
Selmas begin to go off on the back wall, so it opens up a line of sight, potentially forcing back some of these top floor defenders here on the side of One Shot, and also could maybe allow for even more aggression. Again, Luminosity, they have taken a lot of map control so far in the midst of round number 8, and they're still looking to continue that trend potentially, or just hold off a couple of passive angles. The flashes coming through by Eddie, trying to burn through both the magnets and ADSs. A Gone 6 to follow, breaking some of that information game as the bulletproof goes down, and a nade almost follows up as well, just to try to confirm a kill, or at least keep One Shot pushed back for a little while longer.
That's caught by another ADS placed further on Utility's back line. Razor sends it out, catches one of Asian's nades, so it won't have that anymore. Tosses his second one as well. Now completely out of the frag grenades for Luminosity. Still have some smokes for the site execute and an Osa shield as well, so still some capability for Luminosity to fight back, but they really have not done too much damage or warded One Shot off of this roam too much.
50 seconds to go. Furta closing the gap, maybe trying to pop in a better Osa Talon shield to allow for more long one-way lines of sight. That way the coverage is strong enough for Julian to actually get this plant down, but the site presence in general is still rock solid because that lack of verticality we've seen so far in round 8.
And they can play off a lot of the utility they have remaining with no vertical play. You can have full confidence that Razor is holding it up above. You can use these C4s, but Prod sends their only C4 out a little bit early, throws it into the hallway outside of sight. It doesn't find anything, and now Furta takes him down. Not playing behind those Osa shields. Asian takes down the vertical as well. Things have gone middling to worse for One Shot. Kilo has an answer for things, but Swaylin and maybe even NBK certainly don't. Kilo's got to do it all with only 1 HP remaining, or 1 to 2 bullets away from death, depending on how this plays out. Luminosity, they're already in the site. They're already getting the bomb down, and Kilo is working with little to no intel to make this work, with one close that he's not even aware of. Luminosity shut the door on their first attacking win.
And I guess just finding a small crack in the armor, I suppose, for Furta, walking in through the dining doorway and finding the first of many kills for the side of Luminosity. And towards the 40-second mark, things looking rather grim. You had Nitro to worry about. You had the toxic smokes. You had no pressure on that top floor except Asian, who was lightly holding that office wall in case anyone overextended to stop a plant. But in that current moment, Luminosity, they were not in a good spot to go for the plant until both Furta and Asian found kills of their own. Even though Kicks died, it was still just a multitude of frags being found by Luminosity, and just because they had that man advantage, they were actually able to hop back in this site, try to go for that plant, and finally eliminate a lone Jaeger left alive who was just on way too low of HP to find that 1v5.
And that's the worry for Luminosity going into this game, or at least the worry about Luminosity if you're a team going up against them. Everything really was going One Shot's way. Not in some incredible way, not like they had done some major damage in the early round. They just still had some useful utility on the site, still a lot of control on the top floor. It seemed like they could make it work, and then all of a sudden, LG just completely turns it on its head, and they are in the driver's seat in a dramatic fashion. And that's what One Shot always have to worry about on these defenses, because even if, say, LG struggle to take library control for half the round, there's still a chance Asian or Ferda on that Nook can just all of a sudden rip it away from them.
Luminosity opting for potentially some extra parlor tricks. We've got Ferda up on the Nook, and you can imagine maybe we'll see a lower floor play. Yep, and it seems like Kilo had a good read on it, but the timing of the hatch drop was not quick enough to actually catch either Ferda or Asian off guard. Still granting Luminosity that first entry with the new gunner of Asian going absolutely huge. 14-6, that is a stat line that almost is close enough to Dexter's. We might see him actually break that scoreline here depending on how the rest of these rounds go.
Yeah, we're only 8 rounds in right now, and it is an even 4-4, so there is a guaranteed 3 more rounds of play to happen for either of these teams. That is plenty of times to get close to breaking that 20 kill count, which would be very crazy for a player in his CL debut. He's looking for a second right here, but oh no! Looks away to the right as NVK peaks. That is some unlucky timing because given that crosshair placement where he was looking, that was probably a double.
Yeah, the caster's curse rings in through, but thankfully we did not talk about Silent playing on the double window near main balcony. He gets rid of Razor, brings back the man advantage, and he just has to only focus in on this top blue player, that being NVK, but Swaylen swings at just the right time, granting us an equal position once again.
Excellent work by Swaylen, taking advantage of the momentary lapse and the focus by Silent on NVK behind that shield. He pops out, knows that he's not watching that doorway, and is able to get that kill. Now NVK, once there are players on the top floor focusing on him, he just backs up. He knows that shield is going to be destroyed. He knows that LG have already pretty much solidified top floor. Just back down, play sight, and play the 3v3. But now they have to start worrying about Eddie with his vertical.
That's the only major thing for the most part. A lot of the secondary utility is already down the drain. There are still tons of drones, though, so the info game could definitely be very potent here for Luminosity. There are 2 nades in the pocket of Eddie, but that's it. No flashes, no other grenades on the side of Ferda, and if Eddie dies in this vertical, it's going to be a very tricky situation, but thankfully, he wins the 1-for-1. Luminosity retake the lead.
Prod might be retaking top floor. He's moving on up, but somebody peeks, but Ferda is completely unaware of this aggressive play by Prod. Makes the man count even once again, but Swaylen just sitting on the pool table. Kix just peeks in, goes, what the hell's going on in here? And shuts that one down immediately. Prod now fully commits to retaking this top floor. Catches another one off guard. Eddie is 2 steps behind. He's trying to frag grenade below while Prod is fragging up above. He almost takes down Kix, puts him to 1 HP. This is looking like Prod is in control of One Shot's destiny at the moment. Kix has to plant. Retaking top floor is too much of a risk. He'll start pushing on in, looking down the hatch, but Kix gets the bomb down successfully. He can hop out now, but never mind. Prod is fully aware of this play and just waiting for his moment to strike and win the round for One Shot.
Yeah, fantastic retake by Prod, because at that point you're thinking, surely, after we killed the guy who already tried retaking the top floor, another one will not join him in action. Nope, that's exactly what Prod wants you to think, and I believe he was able to just spot the diffuser being put on the ground, so instead of trying to hop down the hatch, give away his position and intentions, he just waits for Kix to actually get off the diffuse, or at least get off the plant, run back outside because he's on 1 HP. He can't just sit in the middle of sight against the vertical holes that Prod has, and that allowed Prod to just get a pretty easy clutch in that 1v1, technically 1v2 depending on how you want to draw it out, and now One Shot will retake the lead once again, as it's still been a back and forth bout between these two teams.
Even if LG end up losing here, this is still a very good showing, but specifically a very good individual showing for Asian so far. They will take their tactical timeout after One Shot have now won bar. Basement is unlocked as well for One Shot, so LG might be anticipating this pick coming out from One Shot and taking some time to go over their strategy, go over how they want to take this, because it did require an almost 1v4 from Asian to win it out. So that might be one of the things they're talking about right now, if they are anticipating and talking about One Shot's potential site selection.
Round number 10. For right now, we've got Wine in contention here for One Shot, and they were able to win off the back of having a pretty decent middle game, having enough utility to stop that plant from actually going down, specifically with that nitro cell we saw, and having Kilo alive to be a human drone, essentially, for NVK to win the 1v4 and stop Asian dead in his tracks, almost close to finding a 4K slash, 4.5K, almost ace clutch. to grant the round lead off for Luminosity. So overall, things on paper were looking fantastic for one shot. I guess just the big thing was getting a little too aggressive when they already had the man advantage. That was really the only concern. But for Luminosity, they might go for a completely different style of attack as their roster just screams, we want to get in the site, we want to get the plant down, and we want to sit outside of that snowmobile wall for as long as possible with the glass, the Talon shields, the Candelas. It's going to be a living nightmare, especially the fact there's no Warden on the board.
Yeah, this is a play we've seen many teams do in North America. And really, you know, many teams overall as well. But, you know, I can remember PB doing it. I can remember Beast Coast doing it. This is maybe not a common rush on basement, but it's one that we see. We'll see that garage wall opened up and smoke sent on in, OSA shields planted. That Glass sits outside and watches as the Candelas go off as well. There's no Warden for one shot on the defense right now, so they could succumb to it. But one thing that is important to note, one shot did a lot of damage to Luminosity by impacting all or most of the hard breaching done on that garage wall, and there's a Cade as well. So in order for Luminosity to make this strat work, they need to bypass their biggest hindrance from the previous garage defense.
We've got the Kaid Claw being popped after a frag was found. I believe one someone can go off, but no. They all get destroyed except for one left in Julian's back pocket. If this Kaid Claw can be destroyed before it gets picked back up, this could be huge, but it seems like Prod is doing a fantastic job of tricking the wall as of right now. So for LG, they've got to commit to at least clearing out this middle floor to a slight extent to make sure they can deal with Prod properly.
That is a really good rush that can work, especially if your coordination is on point for LG. The issue was they committed to something that still required them fix the big issue from that basement attack, which was having all of their hard breaching, or most of it, impacted by the defense or destroyed by the defense. You don't do that here. And now, John, what, you're just going to send Silent up trench? You're just going to send kicks down blue? I mean, all of this utility is still, you know, versatile and can be used in other areas, especially if they're able to open up that single panel right there in one. You can still have the Glass watch that long haul. But they just spent a minute and a half, and they still succumbed to the same thing they succumbed to in the previous attack.
And they can't break the mute jammer. They have no Maverick. They have no more nades because only Silent was bringing nades. So what can they do? They have to funnel and pray that one shot just swings into them. Even a Kaid Claw being procced on the left wall, but the mute jammer gets destroyed. So I guess there is a slight entryway into sight, but no, it's just a kill hole. They have to funnel at this point, Carter. This has been a disastrous round for Luminosity so far.
Yeah, but LG certainly have the skill to make this work, especially if they're able to kill this player in blue. If maybe Kix gets a little, or Kilo, excuse me, if Kilo gets a little over-aggressive, that might be the opening they need. But right now, he's playing this right. He's not getting aggressive. Knows LG are on the back foot, and they'll just have to send it. Two smokes going in, Candelas as well. These magnets, they're still alive. They haven't been burned. One gets caught, but the other goes in, and so will Eddie. Blue is blocked, but a C4 can travel through smoke. It finds one. Kilo finds two, and downs another. It's just Asian and Silent left to make this work. Excellent shot, though it costs a lot of HP for the Glass. Almost gets a second. That's Asian's kill to finish off. There's one coming down West Main right now. He takes down one, but not the second. It's Asian last alive, but he loses it in basement once again. Match point for one shot as they saw the rush, and they just said, we're going to play our game. And what are you going to do but deal with it?
Don't need a Warden if you can't even get in the damn building. It seems like Luminosity just were not meant to have a successful round in that situation. And especially with not having the Maverick or extra grenades in that situation, it just seemed way too taxing to stop the Kaid trick or stop really anything that One Shot was doing to deny Luminosity a direct entryway in towards sight. And I really do got to beg the question why we didn't have anyone rocking that blowtorch to help out the ace or any other kind of hard breach you would bring in that round, and instead having a Nomad, which, don't get me wrong, flashes are fantastic. You can utilize those air jabs as well to make sure no one can directly retake the site. But if you have smokes, you're not going to need the air jabs, A, and B, with Kix/Julian running Claymores, you already have your main hop out taken care of, so it just seemed like just an unnecessary piece of utility that could have been switched out for something better.
Now they'll, after losing that basement attack, One Shot are on match point. Just one more defensive win on Chalet, and they can take this. But basement has certainly been the most consistent site, and Bar was the only other one they were able to succeed on, and it required some really good positioning and individual play by Prod. Kitchen did not go One Shot's way whatsoever on the previous attempt. They held out on the site for a while, but LG just played their game. They just sat and watched those angles, and all of the kills just flew their way. So for One Shot, it's not a guaranteed 7-4 right now. In fact, by far and away not guaranteed.
Dining back on the drawing board here for one shot, and it seems like for Luminosity, they're still up to their old tricks, trying to go for a bottom to top approach to just not focus all that much at the very top floor for a little while until we've got Asian hopping and eventually to go make some nice lines of sight with the sledgehammer. So maybe we'll have a little bit of surprise attack by Eddie at some point, but for now it seems things are rather basic for LG as they want to try to get this vertical down and just force back one shot away as quickly as possible. But I think last time we had this exact same kind of style of play had by Luminosity. They were not successful in the slightest with clearing out anybody that was on the top floor, and it almost cost them the round if it weren't for both Ferda and Asian just lighting up the kill feed to bring a huge man advantage their way.
This is how One Shot have played it so far. They just pull back. They don't try to heavily contest office with their presence. They'll play off some long angles previously made. But I like this decision. We have seen Luminosity sticking with that Maverick and that Hibana a lot. Actually, no, sorry. That was One Shot stick with the Maverick and the Hibana a lot. But now that we see these Selmas come through, this wall is opened very quickly. Very quickly. You don't even have to worry about it. Sure, it's Cade Clawed now, but like, what are you going to do? The holes are already made. You have a kill hole on the left and something you can sprint through on the right. They're looking good so far, but now, as you said, you do have to focus a little bit on this top floor. Not necessarily clear it all the way. Definitely be careful. One Shot isn't getting too aggressive.
Minute 10, and we've got the same stack up here by LG. Got Ferda placing down his Osa shields just for better lines of sight. Silent actually through the hard wall, connects a headshot onto Kilo. Once again, grain the lead-off kill for Luminosity here on this dining room attack, but still a plethora of utility. The smokes are finally being flung out here by Swellen, and there is still a Nitro Cell in the pocket of Prod, which, if timed correctly, could be huge. And NVK denying Eddie of the back take by Trophy side. It's going to allow, once again, a very linear stack up here by Luminosity.
Definitely Eddie, I think, getting a little too comfortable right there. Thought there wasn't anybody on Solar Stairs and ends up losing it. Prod C4 finally connects onto Ferda, and Razor's playing cat and mouse with a player on the top floor right now. It is Asian. He knows he's there, but the trigger discipline so key, so on point. It gets him the kill, keeps the man advantage as Silent gets a nade. He's able to win and get a gunfight with that LMG earlier. Kix has pushed very far in, but he might be separated from the rest of his team right now. Silent's got his nade up, but Kix has his gun up. Cuts down NBK. It's off up to Swalen, the Pro League Savant, who should have made it in. He wins the game instead! Staying in CL, staying in the round. Gets One Shot their lead over the New Org pickup.
The GOAT with the Mossberg takes down 2 in a biblical fashion, as CJ would say, and we're not going to need to see another round here on Chalet today as One Shot lock it out 7-4. And I'm really shocked of how they played out in that 1v2. I thought they had confirmed the last player was inside of Kitchen. I thought we were going to see a plant go down because there weren't many, if any, toxic smokes left in the pocket of Swalen, yet we still saw both of them just run at him like chickens with their heads cut off, and that costed them not only the round, but the game altogether, Carter.
Yeah, just Swalen able to keep it calm, cool, and collected. Though I imagine, to be fair, I imagine he probably was not very calm in that situation, prone behind a table as players were sprinting towards him. So yeah. I imagine he was probably a little stressed, but still able to keep his composure and win those out. As you said, LG seemingly operating without some of that necessary intel. I mean, we saw Eddie die earlier vaulting through that window, and that was a little bit of foreshadowing for the clutch that was to come. He's hopping into the trophy window. He's like, okay, Kilo has died there. Maybe he even droned it out and didn't see anybody there. Gets a little ahead of himself. Doesn't consider the possibility that somebody's on Solar Stairs. NVK walks down and kills him. The exact same thing does Luminosity in the end, and it gives One Shot a 7-4. And, might I add, while the desk might have gotten the rent-free prediction correct last time, Jonah, Brim, and we got the One Shot prediction correct here. So we can throw it back to the desks to break down what might even consider to be an upset victory over Luminosity.
Sometimes you just got to break away from your desk and make your own decisions. And, sometimes it pays off. Tanner, what I wanted to talk to you first and foremost about, obviously we know through just watching that game, we know that Kilo is an effective player. But one thing you made mention of as we were watching it was that you believe he's one of the smartest players in CL. What is it about him that impresses you so much? What does he do?
It's mainly like his positioning. Like he's always in the right position at the right time, and you saw that in his 1v. I think it was a 2v4 clutch that him and Prod had, but it was basically a Kilo show. I mean, he was picking off one pick at a time. And he just walked in through sight, through breach, and was just able to make sure that he was isolating his targets individually, and then he was getting those picks before they went in and finished off the last picks. And I just want to say, like in general, like That might have been a 7-4 scoreline, but that game was a lot closer than it looked like. There were
Oh, yeah.
three big clutches coming out from the sides of Kilo, from the side of Prod on that defensive round on Bar Gaming, and then right there, Swalen at the end to close it out. That was another 1v2 where they knew where his position was, and he still managed to get away with it. Just an absolute barn burner of a game between these two teams. Like I said, despite the scoreline, despite one shot getting 3 points, that was a very, very good showing from LG and the roster moves that they just made.
Well, up until they broke away, Connor, this matchup was back and forth, one round, but also look, Kilo's good, but what a debut by Asian. It's just too bad, Connor, that it had to come in a loss.
Yeah, at this point now, if you're a brand new player to Challenger League and you play Yana, it seems like you're going to have at least a 1.5 rating and at least 15 kills because Asian did it, Dexter did it. Apparently, that is constant. But overall, with the side of Luminosity Gaming, even though they lost in regulation, you might think, oh, look, they were number one last year. Now they've taken a regression. This is a significantly upgraded roster, and their playstyle looked so much better. However, Tanner, you said it. The gambles, the risky roster moves for the side of one shot. Guess what? They put all their eggs in one basket, and man, they are making the most fluffy and delicious omelet I've ever seen.
Okay, guys, we've done this before though, where we're one game into, technically overall 2 games into our stage, and already we're like, oh man, this team, they look good. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like as an analyst desk, we often shoot ourselves in the foot by making these calls where we're just wowed out the gate. Didn't we do it?
No, these 4 teams that we have seen play are 4 of the top 5 teams.
Yeah, just instant
agree.
Prediction.
I would agree. I think the biggest thing though is like you're looking at the NAL, right, and how competitive it is. Like that's going to translate immediately into Challenger League. You know, these Challenger League teams are the ones who are primarily scrimming versus NAL teams. They're getting the absolute best exposure, and I think it's trickling down into Challenger League. We just have like an absolute barn burner of a game after barn burner of a game. We're just starting off. Like this is just the beginning of the day. We still have 3 more games after this, so
we just continue to reap the rewards. But I'm not complaining. Okay. We've got the interview ready. It's going to be Swalen from the side of One Shot, and we've got some questions for them. First of all, Swalen, congratulations. This was a great win. You guys finally broke through later on, although it was back and forth. How is the depth looking on this team now that you've made those roster changes? Because it's looking pretty sweet to us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We've been putting in, a lot of work, a lot of hours of just dry running, VOD reviewing, all the little tedious things to make sure that we have like all those little details checked off.
And when you made these roster changes, did you have to adjust roles for people at all? And if so, are people fitting into those roles nicely?
Yeah, definitely a little bit. I know that like Nate, he was moved to like the vert roles, like the sledge. I'm pretty much like the same. Me and Kilo are pretty much the same. Probably picked up like the flank watch. And yeah, I'd say they're definitely, fitting in well. Razor obviously just kind of fit like right into that entry slot, so that was pretty easy.
Now, the first thing you did today, Playday number 1, is go up against the number 1 team from last stage. Is that a big confidence boost, taking them on and beating them and making a statement day 1?
Yeah, I'd definitely say, it's nice to win, but obviously, we're just kind of keeping it game by game, and then
Yeah.
we have LSR tomorrow, so, take our win and then right back to work, I guess.
Well, it was impressive. A lot of fun to watch. Thank you so much, Swalen, and hopefully we'll be talking tomorrow.
Thank you so much, hopefully.
Have a good one. Yeah, we had definitely the play of the day. It is so weird to think that that was a 7-4 game because it can't be stressed enough. It didn't feel like that. It was almost like we were sitting here and we were like, wait, that's it. They took it. The game's already over. We're expecting a few more rounds just because of all the action that was going on. But the action isn't done yet today. We have 3 more matches. The next one coming up. Hold on, I got to get this right because both teams their names are in flux at the moment. But we're going to have TTK taking on Karn and Co. That'll be the third matchup of the day in just a few minutes.